first thing you're going to start off with the neck. So it's the same concept, is try and reach the maximum ranges of motion all throughout the movement. So you try and get down and out to the sides as maximum as you can, and then reverse the movement about 5 to 7, 8 repetitions through. Okay, then you will move on to the shoulders. So sit completely upright, lock your knees and your complete upper body up. Point your thumb forward, like I've made a fist and pointed my thumb forward, and from there make a complete circle. So as you see, I go up again, go to your maximum range of motion till your thumb's facing forward. Once you can't go, then turn that shoulder out and create one complete circle without moving your shoulders. So your shoulders have got to try and stay as square as they can along with your hips, and do not open your spine up. So you want to try and stay as straight as you possibly can. Again, the same, 5 forward, 5 backward, and you can swap hands. To the upper back and the spine. So you'll try and wrap your hands around as much as you can around your shoulders. From there, keeping maximum tension on the entire body, you will bend forward till as much as you can, and then start rotating out to the side, and then open your spine up, but your fingers cannot like release off your shoulders, so they've got to try and stay on your shoulders and complete circular motion. So you want 5 clockwise, 5 anti-clockwise without creating one complete circle. So once you've extended, gone to the other side, you want to reverse that movement back to where you started from. So don't create one whole circle, but come to your starting point and then reverse the movement. Try and force your end ranges as much as you can and create complete tension throughout the body. So you don't want any laxity in any other parts of the body, but create tension. We now move on to the hips. So this is internal rotation and external rotation. So bend one leg at 90 degrees, that's your starting point, and then from there you will internally rotate the hip. So basically take your shin bone outwards, but you've got to make sure your hip does not like move out of that 90 degrees. So it stays in line with your body, and then you will internally and externally rotate. So each time you externally rotate or internally rotate, so now I'm externally rotating. Moving on like to the next leg. Now I'm internally rotating my hip. I've got to try and push my hip out as much as I can for 5 seconds actively. So really creating tension, pushing out as much as I can for 5 seconds. Then you'll go the other hip the other way for 5 seconds. But you've got to like focus on that knee completely staying straight in line with your body and not moving outside your hip. So you repeat that about 5 times on each side. So push out for 5 seconds. So now internally rotating the hip 5 seconds, then externally rotating the hip for 5 seconds. Then you repeat the same for both legs about 5 times. Okay, we now move on to the 90-90 stretch. So you've done this before in your institute sessions. So you basically keep your both your legs at 90 degrees, and then instead of just initiating with your chest down to your knee, you've got to try and take your belly button onto your thigh muscle. So try and get your belly button close to your thigh muscle. That way you're going to try and stay more upright as compared to your chest coming down. Keep your chest nice and tall. You will reach forward as much as you can, again with that belly button to your thigh bone, and push your hip towards your chest. So your chest towards your hip, towards your knee, your belly button towards your knee, and your knee towards your chest. So you're going to counteract between both of them and then create that tension for like 5 seconds and then release. And then you will walk out to the other side and for the Tspine. So again, here on my left leg initiating forward. So you'll see me make that adjustment of like keeping my upright body. There you go. I'm taking my belly button over to my thigh bone rather than my chest to my thigh bone. Once I reach my maximum point, you'll see I'll start creating tension. I start lifting my hip. It's a very subtle movement, but it's just simply creating tension. So knee to my chest and belly button to my hip bone, create the tension for 5 seconds, and then you release and walk out, opening the spine. I'm opening the opposite hip out. And then you would do the same for about 5 repetitions on each leg before you move on to the next exercise. Okay, we now move on to the hamstrings and the knee joint. So hug your knee in together and then push your chest in towards your knee. Try and keep your shoulders rolled back. So your tendency is that you'll roll your spine just like I am. But that again is just simply refers to a perfect example of lack of like mobility or active ranges of motion that we should have. So try and keep that back upright. Pull that knee in as much as you can towards your chest, and then from there you will like actively straighten your knee out, and the knee capsule tightening your quads. So now moving on to the next same concept. So the reason you see me struggling or my facial expression struggling is because I'm actually creating tension and trying to squeeze my quads as hard as I can to create that extra space and mobility in the joint, so everything's active and we're just not passively going through ranges of motion. So now we are onto the ankle. So it's same setup as the previous one for the hamstrings, but pull in as much as you can, and then without moving your knee joint to side, you will only create circles with your ankles. So the same as your neck, for example, where you can create circles, you've got to go to the end ranges of motion with that ankle. So actively try and push the end ranges of the ankle on always. And now you will point out and point in. So each time you point out, you will hold for 5 seconds, point in for 5 seconds, and then internally rotate and externally rotate. So, and then move on to the next leg. So again, circles first, maximum end ranges of motion for a few repetitions, and all of this is active. So pushing your end ranges as much as you can, and then you will see me pointing out. I'm still creating circles at the moment. This was anti-clockwise. And now pointing out, holding for 5 seconds, in for 5 seconds, out for 5, and that was internally rotating my ankles, externally rotating my ankles, creating that active tension, and then you repeat the same for about 3 to 5 repetitions on both legs. Okay, we then move on to mobility stuff that we've always done or you're familiar with. So push your hip flexor forward, and then as you lean back and straighten the leg out, you've got to actively squeeze that quad and straighten your leg. So it's simply actively firing the squat muscles, but at the same time, when the quad muscles are fired, the hamstring is going to lengthen at the back, and it's just a neural activity that happens. So everything's active, pushing the hip forward and then straightening the knee out, tightening that quad muscle, so you're actually actively releasing the hamstring. So again, go through 5 repetitions on each leg before you move on to the next exercise. Now moving on to the calves and the downward dogs that you've done before. But again, you've got to actively push your heels as far as you can into the ground, creating that pike with your bum up in the air. Once you're done with about 10 repetitions on each leg, then step out and open out on both sides. So as you open on both sides, your hips automatically going to be forced outwards in that rotation. So you open your spine up, you open your internal parts of your quads up, groins, and there's activation of the glutes and all of the quad muscles as well. Okay, now moving on to some activation stuff. Single leg glute bridges on each leg. As I noticed that so many of you lift your heels off the ground and keep your toes on the ground, so you want to do exactly the opposite. So drive your heels into the ground, squeeze the glute and crunch the tummy at the same time, and keep the other leg at 90 degrees into your chest with tight ankles, tight knees. So if you imagine me pushing your knees away, you've got to push against towards your chest and keep that constant tension on. Once you're done with these, you'll then move on to bridge marches. Then you've done all of these before. Again, heels on the ground, glutes nice and steady, and the abdomen nice and activated, so you don't want any rocking back and forth. So if you are rocking while you swap your legs from one side to the other, you're not engaging your abdomen and your glutes well enough. So concentrate on that factor while doing this. Then we move on to Deadbbugs for 10, driving your belly button into the ground as tight as you can, keeping your non-working leg at 90 degrees with good tension, and the working leg just hovers 6 inches off the ground, so complete extension of that leg, squeezing that quad, always having complete activation of the body while doing the exercises. And then the final 2 bits, you do 5 hand release push-ups. So squeeze, so you see me release my hands, squeeze my scapula, my back muscles in together, and then push away from the ground, and control on our way down like we've always done. So you want 1 second push off, 2 second for the scap hold for the back squeeze, 1 second push off, and a 3 second descend back down. And then without moving your hips, nice wide stance, you do 10 shoulder taps, activating your abdomen and your oblique muscles. So with all of these, you have complete activation, mobility done on a day, and you could repeat the activation stuff for 2 sets. And your final little bit will be hamstring walkouts. So walk out and in equals 1 repetition, and keep those hips up, heels on the ground, abdomen nice and tight, avoid any rocking of any kind, small controlled steps, and we should be activated for the day with some good mobility in one of our investment sessions in for the day. So all the best.